Joe knows taxes.
Joe knows the market.
Joe knows Social Security.
Joe knows income planning.
Joe knows pickleball? No.
This is Joe Knows Retirement.
In today's podcast episode, we're going to talk about the complexities of retirement planning and what it looks like to face those for today's retiree or pre-retiree, someone who is getting ready to retire. So we hear a lot of people who are just a little concerned or worried heading into retirement. And we often hear that, most people's concerns are running out of money, making sure I have enough to live that retirement that I want to, right? And I actually heard a saying, it's actually pretty funny. And basically the saying goes that if you have $1 million, you don't feel satisfied, you want $2 million. And if you have $2 million, you want $4 million. And then when you have $4 million, you want $8 million. And then the study goes on to show that once you have $8 million, you're no longer worried about running out of money. But anyone $8 million or less is worried about it. And so when you look at the numbers, that's less than 1%, 2%, 1 or 2% of the U.S. that is concerned about, not concerned about running out of money, whereas everyone else is concerned about running out of money. So I'd say for most retirees, this is going to be a big concern of running out of money. And I'm here today to show you that, yes, it is a concern, but if you plan the right way, you may not have to worry about that concern as much as ultimately the goal by having a great plan. We may not need to keep saving and saving and saving at this point. Maybe you've done your work and you have enough money. We may just need a better plan at this point is ultimately what we're trying to educate you on. So why are the complexities of retirement planning so real today? Well, when we look at it, it's pretty interesting. Retirement today is a lot different than it was 50 years ago, right? Let's just go back to 1935, for example, around the time when Social Security started. The life expectancy at that point was age 63. Nowadays, people are living much longer. The average life expectancy, if you're 65 today, they say that you're going to live till about 83 if you're a male, or 85 if you're female, is the last study that I showed. That's a lot different than 1935 when you may have only lived till 63, right? So we're seeing people that retirement age is still about the same. People are not working a ton longer than they used to, right? But people are living much longer into the future. And what does that tell us? If retirement date is here and they want to live working for 20 more years, or they want to enjoy retirement for 20 more years, where's the money coming from to do that? And so that's one concern, is that people are just living longer. But another concern is that you don't have a pension anymore, do you? Less than 20% of retirees are going to have a pension. And so with that amount of people not having that, they're now responsible for creating their retirement. And some people have done really well at this. Other people have not done as well. Other people may have not have ever made enough money to plan out their retirement, right? And so this is why we're seeing it become more of a concern, because there's a lot more risks at stake now that you don't have that pension that's covering the majority of your income throughout retirement. And if you look back in time, most people had a really large pension from their employer. They worked there all their life. Nowadays, a lot of people are job hopping and switching careers, right? And the other thing is Social Security was a little more generous back then than it is today. So Social Security's had to make some cuts in order to keep it in place to cover people living longer. And so that's been, an impact for people retiring, right? Back then it was a little better. And so with those concerns, you also have, what if you're managing your own retirement? Well, a lot of people just go right to the stock market. Most 401ks are built up of stocks and bonds, which can lose value, right? And so if that's what you're invested in, you have even more risks. You have market risks now that are now added to your retirement. With a pension, there is no market risk because that amount is guaranteed over time if the market's up or the market's down. And so that's why, again, it makes it harder for retirees today, is because we don't have that sense of guarantee provided to us anymore. And so those are two of the biggest concerns of why retirement planning is so different today. And when we look at it, I had a guy at a workshop before. It's one of my favorite stories. He came up to me afterwards. He said, "Joe, I loved your workshop. This was awesome stuff." He said, "I'm 3 years into retirement." And he said, this is my favorite quote, I'll never forget it. He said, "I don't want to make a stupid mistake where I put everything I've worked hard for the last 40 years at chance." He said, "If I make 1 or 2 mistakes in retirement, it could cost me everything. I either have to go back to work or, hey, I'm out of luck," right? And so when I heard those words, I said, man, that's a lot of my clients. A lot of the clients that we work with here, they have that same type of mentality that they just don't want to make a mistake. And they don't want to miss out on different opportunities. And so that's why most people work with us is, hey, we're going to open up those opportunities for you. We're going to open the door, open your eyes to say, here's what's out here. Let's make sure we do this. Let's not miss this, right? Because I like the saying of, you don't know what you don't know, right? And I think that's so true. And so for many pre-retirees and retirees, they just don't know what tax saving strategies are out there, or even how to invest their portfolio, how to position their assets to get them income in retirement. And so that's something I feel like people just need to explore further, right? Think about it this way. You've worked all your life for the past 40 years at a full-time job. You worked 40 hours a week for 40 years. You're probably an expert at what you did. You're probably very good at it. How many hours, how many times did you spend working on financial planning? How many hours of reading did you do on retirement planning? And here's a fun question. How many retirements have you planned? And so that's why our biggest advice is just get help. That gentleman that came up to me after the workshop, he simply said, I need help. And so that's our biggest advice to you is, hey, the complexities of retirement planning are real. So go get help so you don't have to worry about them as much and live the retirement that you're looking for there is ultimately our opinion there of what you should do. The next thing I want to talk about is the retirement mountain. And this is kind of helps summarize the complexities of retirement planning. And so when we think of retirement planning, we think of that mountain. That's why our firm's name is Peak Retirement Planning, because we help people get down the mountain. We specialize in only helping people who are in or near retirement. And when you're going up the mountain, that would be your working years. That's going to be saving into the 401k, saving into the IRA, making sure you got enough money to get to that point where you can say, I want to call it quits and I want to enjoy this money that I've saved. That's what we call the accumulation phase. In the accumulation phase, it's not necessarily hard. It's not necessarily simple. It's pretty easy, but it's not necessarily simple, right? There's some work that has to be done, but it doesn't take a ton of effort. You just have to save and work on and live on less than you make, right? And then once you get to the top there, great job, but now we've got a whole nother set of complexities coming down the mountain. And when we look at all of the concerns that we have coming down the mountain, there's quite a bit, right? We've got the longevity concern that we just said. We're living longer than ever. We've got the investment idea where now we have to create our own investments. We have to manage our own investments to live off of that money now that we don't have that pension. Inflation is a big concern, right? If you need $5,000 a month today, in 20 years at a 3% inflation rate, which is the historical average, you would need $10,000 to live on at that point, meaning the amount you will need throughout retirement could double. And are you going to have more money, or are you going to only have what you have? Are you going to keep working, or are you just going to have what you have? If so, we got to preserve what you have so it's going to last that long and keep up with inflation and also outpace the healthcare, right? Healthcare is another concern there that a lot of retirees are seeing. And also taxes in retirement. Many people think, I'll be in a lower tax situation in retirement. And for some people that's true, but a lot of people that we work with who have saved up quite a bit of money, most of them have saved their money in 401ks or IRAs where they haven't paid taxes on it yet. And so in retirement, they're going to have to withdraw that money for income to live on, or they're going to be forced to take that money out at 73 now for required minimum distributions. If you're born in 1960 or after, that is 75. But as you can see, there's going to be you're going to be forced to take out income, and your income in retirement is going to increase because of those RMDs, because of Social Security. Remember, Social Security is now taxable. So Social Security used to not always be taxable, but now it is. And because of that, we have to make sure we're planning for that. And then if you are part of that 20% that has a pension, well, that counts as income too. Or like many people we see, you may want to work part-time in retirement where you get a income. Maybe it's not super high, but it is an income that counts towards your limits there. And you could be in a similar tax bracket or higher in the future. And if we're expecting tax rate to increase, like most people suggest, you're probably going to pay more taxes in retirement. And a lot of the analysis that we do for our clients, we're able to show them that if we don't do anything today, you're actually going to be paying more taxes over time. So we probably want to look at some tax planning strategies today, some tax saving strategies today to make sure we can put ourselves in a better position. There's just too many times where people don't consider taxes in retirement. And in my mind, I think that's the biggest expense for most retirees in retirement is just taxes. And it's something that you have more control over. You can control by looking at that tax code, opening it up, and seeing, hey, what loopholes are here, what legal ways are here to save money on taxes. And I always joke about it, but everyone hates the rich, right? And hate them or love them, I'm not here to tell you what to do, but you got to appreciate the fact that they're playing the game to the best of their abilities. Don't hate the player, hate the game, right? They're not the one making the rules. They're just one looking at the rules and doing the right things. They're not doing anything illegal for the most part. And so you have the same book in front of you is basically my point. You just have to make sure you open it up and read it. And if you're not willing to read it, go get help and make sure you find someone who's going to help you open that book to find which strategies are going to help you save money over time is ultimately our advice there. So that's the idea of Retirement Mountain, is that coming down this mountain is a lot different than ever before, and we've got to be planning for it. And the next thing that I want to talk about is what we call our 5-pillar approach. And this is something that we help with our clients to face that complexity of retirement planning. We try to really simplify it and touch on the 5 points that we feel are most important for our clients in retirement. And that first point is tax planning. I just went in detail about that. The biggest expense in your retirement, in my opinion. And it's actually the one that's probably talked about the least when it comes to the financial planning world. Most people just don't talk taxes. And I think that's one, because they don't understand it. And two, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to help a client with tax planning. It's something we're committed to because we know it really well. And we, when implemented correctly, it can really make a huge impact. But most financial planners were never trained to do that, nor do they have the time to do that when they've got so many clients, is ultimately my idea of why it's not talked about enough. So we want to change that, obviously. The second pillar that we help our clients through is what we call the investment plan. And this is simply just making sure your investments are allocated the right way. So something that we see for most retirees is they're taking on way too much risk than they need to. They're winning the game right now. They're up 10 points, but they're still trying to throw the Hail Mary passes. We may just need to run the ball, get a consistent return over time, enough to outpace inflation, enough to outpace healthcare costs, and we just probably need to avoid any big dips in the market, or anything causing the market to go down would be the idea with the investment plan there. And then we look at the income plan, which is point number 3. So obviously a lot of complexities with the income plan when it comes to Social Security. Which investments should you take out from? Which accounts should you take out from? And how do you make this all work together so we don't risk running out of money, right? And so we help our clients decide the most optimal time to take Social Security. We will help them, educate them of how that plays a part with not only their investments but also their taxes. So a lot of this stuff plays together. And then we help them design their investments in a way that are going to structure it in a way that we can pull out income when we want to, and in a way that they can avoid any market downturns while still getting enough growth over time to keep up with that inflation that we've been talking about today. And so that's point number 3. And then pillar 4 is healthcare. I already mentioned it earlier. We see a lot of people concerned about long-term care when it comes to healthcare. Of, hey, healthcare costs could cost $50,000, $100,000 a year if you need a nursing home, and most people are probably going to need it. I think the last stat I heard is about 70% of people are going to need long-term care. And I've noticed that to be true with my grandparents. 3 out of my 4 grandparents have needed long-term care. And so you can see, not only financially how hard that is, but also emotionally. So that's something else we want to encourage people to plan for, is not only the financial side, but dealing with a loved one who isn't doing as well can be uncomfortable. And so we want to make sure you're educated on that piece as well. The other thing with healthcare is Medicare. So we get a lot of people that think, what do I do at 65? Do I get Part B? Do I get Part C? Do I get Part D? What are the Medicare ABCDs, right, is what we call them. So we try to help our clients understand those better. We help them shop around to find the best cost, and also make sure they're getting the right amount of coverage that they need, so they're not as concerned about healthcare moving forward. And then the last thing about the healthcare plan that we always mention is out-of-pocket healthcare expenses are going to be very real throughout your retirement. The average retiree, Fidelity did a study that shows that $250,000 is the average cost of healthcare for retirees in retirement. That's a lot of money, and we have to ask ourselves, where are we going to come up with that money to make sure we're paying for healthcare throughout retirement is ultimately our goal. The 5th pillar is the estate plan. And the estate plan is one that everyone wants and needs, but not too many people have it, sadly, because it just takes some extra work to get that in place. And you have to make sure you're getting the right advice to know what to put in place. So we always recommend you meet with an estate planning attorney for that. At our firm, we have an estate planning attorney who meets with our clients at our office. And it just makes it really streamlined. We make sure an advisor's in that meeting to make sure everything gets discussed the right way. But also we want to make sure that we implement what's done in that session, because too many times people get an estate plan, but they don't do anything with it. You have to get that, and then you have to put it in place. And so that's something that we want to make sure people are aware of. But the main point of the estate plan, just to drive it home, is we need to know what's going to happen when you pass away. And if you're married, what if one of your spouses pass? Or what if one of the spouses pass? What is going to happen next is ultimately the idea there. So make sure you have an estate plan. It's very important to have in place, and that would cap off the 5 pillars there. So hopefully today's episode was very helpful and just setting the stage of facing the complexities of retirement planning. As we continue to go with these podcasts over time, we're going to really dive into each of those 5 pillars and talk about some other issues in retirement planning as well. Feel free to send us a comment or an email or go to our website and just let us know what other topics you want to hear in these podcasts. We want to make these as fruitful for you as possible and make sure we're delivering the best advice and education that we can. So enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks for joining the Joe Knows Retirement.
Since we do not know your specific situation, none of this information can serve as tax, legal, insurance, or financial advice and may be outdated or inaccurate. The information comes from sources believed to be reliable but cannot be guaranteed. This content is prepared for educational purposes only. If you need advice, please contact a qualified CPA, attorney, insurance agent, financial advisor, or the appropriate professional for the subject you would like help with. Peak Retirement Planning, Inc. is an Ohio-based registered investment advisor and able to offer advisory services in Ohio and in other states where registered or exempt from registration.